Alright, what up people? I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, but I'm gonna try for you guys because, I want to really be consistent with this. I want to keep getting it out. I don't know how to start this, but every time that I start this, I tell you guys I'm nervous and I don't know how to start this, so I guess this is kind of how I start this now. Today's question: how much is enough? So that can go in many different senses. How much material is enough? At what point do you stop chasing these things to fill the hole? How many people are enough? At what point do you stop looking for external validation to fill a gap? But really the question I'm asking is, at what point in my process, in my progress, in all things, at what point do I feel like enough? At what point am I enough? Because the truth is, I put this smile on daily, a happy tone, and a kind attitude, and go about my day, go about my life. And then at the end of things, at the end of everything, when I close my door, it's very hard to feel like enough. And that can be a hard thing to admit, especially in a world where we're not taught to handle emotion. Especially in a world where we are taught to kind of, it's not about how we feel, it's about what we do, But at what point do I feel like enough? And I came out here the other day, and I tried to do this, and I thoroughly felt like I was losing my mind. Because not that I couldn't feel anything, but it felt like I couldn't feel anything. I felt a weight. And that weight was very, very prevalent. Went home and kind of just, I had a conversation with my mom, which I appreciate her for that. She's always good for that. She's always good for just honest, open conversation. So are all the people that I keep around me. But then right after that, I flopped in my bed and I stayed there. And I didn't get up, and that felt nice. But at what point do I stop forcing myself through that harsh, empty, numb, and just drained feeling and make it so that, I have to push through and do something? At what point do I stop? At what point do I look at myself and I say, you've done enough and I'm proud of you and you deserve a break? And pushing through, it's an honorable thing. I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do. I think that that's honestly kind of the right thing to do, But at what point do I just sit here at the beach, stare at the waves, watch the sunset? At what point do I just wash my face and take a shower and, that's it? And that's all I need for myself. At what point do I do that? At what point do I honor myself and how hard I've worked and how harsh I feel and put everything else to the side? Forget about the responsibilities. My only responsibility is me and taking care of me. At what point do I do that? And I'm not sure that I'll ever know when I'll truly do that. I'm not sure that there will ever be a point where I just do that and I consistently do that for the rest of my life. And that's the way that things will be, Maybe I just, will never be fully comfortable with that. But I have to try. And trying is asking this question of, at what point will I feel that way? And asking myself why I don't feel that way. You don't find the solution, you don't find the root unless you look for it, Does my hair look majestic when that happens? Nice. But at what point do I realize that I've worked so hard and I deserve a break? At what point am I just, understanding that there is so much in life that I can't handle, can't control, can't have a grasp on, that I just stop trying? And the truth of the matter is, it's so much easier and it's almost comfortable to feel uncomfortable. And I'm not in the sense of uncomfortable in the way of growth, but we're all happier to be in pain. We're all happier to struggle because that's our comfort zone. So it's more comfortable to be uncomfortable in the sense that we all make sure that we have something to struggle about, something to worry about, something to get up and move over, and something that causes us to get up and run so that we stop having the opportunity to sit with our own mind, And it's a scary prospect to sit with your own mind, And that's why I got up the other day and just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept pushing, was because I knew for a fact that if I tried to stop and sit still, there would be something inside of me that would just rot. It felt like this is a quote from my mom, like my skin is crawling. And I've never really felt so seen on that until somebody pointed that out. That it's not just me that feels like whenever I try and sit still, my skin is crawling. It's not just me that forces myself up every time that I feel like I just want to lay down. But at what point is enough enough? At what point have I done enough and have I earned the ability to just lay down and stop? I'll be okay. If I take one day, if I take 2 days, if I take 3 days, if I take one whole week, I will be okay. Is that an insane prospect to think about? I really don't think it needs to be. I really don't think that this world as a whole is waiting on your very next move, and if your very next move isn't good enough, that everything is going to fall flat and that you are just this complete utter failure. And though the weight may feel like that, though the weight that you have in your chest or in your stomach, whatever it is, though it may feel like that, that's not the reality of things. You're allowed to take a break. You're allowed to do whatever you want in this world. And if rotting in bed for one full day, and that doesn't mean rotting with a phone, we have this dopamine addiction in today's day and age, that every chance that we get to take a break is TV and a break is phone. A break is editing video. A break is anything other than stopping and sitting. A break is anything other than breathing, because breathing and stopping are probably the two scariest things that come with the responsibilities of this world. The ability to stop and to take a breath is probably the most heart-wrenching option that you could possibly choose from. And it's scary. It's scary that we have this mind that runs so rampant that we can't even stop for a second. And it's scary that they've fed us so many different ways and reasons and options, and just the ability to avoid that so often. It's scary that instead of dealing with the root and the main thought that is within me, I can hop on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube and compound that thought with several other thoughts that either make me giggle because it's rotting my brain and I know no other response, or just completely, pile on these different things so that I can focus on these different things. I don't know if that made any sense to anyone. I hope that you guys can't see how nervous I am, because I do this every time that I try and record these. But we have an easy escape. And I think there's a reason for that. I think that the power of your own mind is something that most people who run these social media apps, they don't want you to have. I think the ability of free thought is something that they don't want you to have. I think that, the chance and the opportunity to stop and think your way through that actual pain instead of relying on them for that dopamine fix, I think that's not... Here I go with the they, like there's some big mysterious boogeyman that, for all I know, may completely not be true. And ultimately, whether it is true or it's not true, I'm not here to debate that, but the main point of all of this is that it's down to you. Scary, right? No matter what they want, no matter what they do, no matter what they offer to you, at the end of every single day, it's up to you, when you close your door at night, to make the right decision, to make a decision that is for the betterment of your growth, to make a decision that is in alignment with you as a person, to make a decision that supports breath, that supports active growth instead of active avoidance. We're trained in that way of thinking, and I can't say we, like I speak for everybody on this earth, but I know there's so many people out there that struggle with this constant something in their way. This constant realization that if they get any closer to themselves, that if they get any closer to any form of genuine thought about where they are, where they're at, where they're going to be, it's this polarizing thing. You are frozen and stuck in a moment, and you are so frozen and stuck in that moment that the only thing that we know how to do, and I'm back to we, but the only thing that we know how to do is scramble, hop up and run somewhere else other than to ourselves. At what point am I enough to look myself in the mirror and to say, none of this matters, I can stop and I can take a break? At what point am I done looking for this validation in whoever's watching this video? At what point am I done looking for validation in the likes that they put up on my Instagram and on my TikTok? At what point can I stop and sit by the sound and just realize that there are waves crashing on the beach and there is leaves that are rustling because the wind is whipping? At what point can I stop and say, this whole world is enough, and I'm enough, and I've done enough? And like I said, maybe, just maybe, I never see that point. But I'm trying, just like I said in this last episode, I'm trying every single day to wake up and make the most of it. Because I cannot give up on my opportunity here. And yeah, it's scary where I'm going to end up in a year, let alone 5 or 10 years. 5 or 10 years, if the world keeps going on the track that it's going, A, I don't know if there will be a world. B, I don't know if I can afford the world. Especially the world that I want. I want to be able to put my family and my loved ones on the map. The pressure and the weight that comes with that is immense. And now I'm so scared that if I don't get up every single day and make the most of every single day and make you look at me in some kind of way every single day, that I'll never get all those dreams and desires that I want. So I stop. I stop stopping. I stop stopping. I keep going. I keep pushing and pushing myself to the point where I'm not only so drained, but I'm so depressed. And all I want is to just fall. Just fall. Walking feels like a weight. Talking feels like a weight. That's what it was the other day. But I kept trying to push through it and act like if I pushed through it, that would solve all my issues. That would solve this weight, this hole that I feel inside me. But no, this hole comes from, an endless list of, grief and loss and personal endeavors and learning and all these things that you don't want to deal with. All the times when I did sit alone, that is the long list of reasons why I feel that I cannot sit alone. Isn't that ironic? That there was so much growing that at one point I looked at myself and I said I don't want to grow anymore. There was so much growth that I said I'm scared to grow from this point forward because there has been so much and it has hurt me in so many different ways that I think I'm done. And I tried to give up on myself. Does that sound like the proper response? Give up on myself because I learned enough from myself that it hurt me in the name of growth itself, I really don't think so. And I think what a lot of us need to realize, and I can't speak for everybody, a lot of this is rooted in loss. For me specifically, the people that I lost, and I'm not trying to, be a downer, but the people that I lost, they showed me what it was like to not feel like enough. And they let it compound and kept following down this specific lifestyle to the point where they either made the decision for themselves or they let life make that decision for them. And those are my role models. Those are the people that I'm looking to and saying, teach me how to live. And I was taught how to not feel like enough. I was taught how to run and how to avoid and how to fight with myself when I wake up in the morning. I was taught how to lay in bed until I'm late. I was taught how to, play a video game instead of dealing with myself. I was taught how to work instead of deal with myself. I was taught all of those things. And if my role models were the people who showed me what it's like to not feel like enough, that's such a deep-rooted issue that, of course, sitting alone with myself feels like the worst form of torment. And another question arises from just that phrase, torment. At what point do I feel like it's enough torment? At what point do I feel like I've tortured myself enough to say to myself, you don't need to keep doing this to yourself? At what point have I worked myself down to the bone? To the point where I looked at myself and I said, hey dude, you could take a break now. Again, this goes back to the mentality that it's not about how you feel, it's about what you do. And sure, that's a toxic mentality, but it's something that's ingrained in just about all of us. I don't want to speak for you, but it's ingrained in just about all of us. That it doesn't matter how you feel. And there's a certain line. You can't let feeling be everything. You can't let feeling dictate everything. But at what point do you say to yourself, how shitty I feel right now dictates what I am doing for the rest of my day. And for the rest of my day, I'm going to decide to stay off socials. I'm going to decide what? I'm going to decide to stop, posting, texting, doing this, that, the other thing. To avoid myself, I'm going to just stop and just be. And I'm going to cry for the whole entire day if that is what's required of me to grow through this. It's wild to think that emotion in its real raw state is the thing that we choose to run away from 9 times out of 10. Unless it is absolutely extreme, and that addresses something within me that I've noticed, is that I'm not somebody who knows how to express my emotion. Maybe I'm doing really well at that right now. I feel like I am, and I'm super happy with this recording. But if you ask most of those around me, up until maybe this past year, maybe year and a half, I did not know how to express my emotion to the point where I just waited, bottled it up to the point where I was either so toxic to those people that were around me and I was destroying everything that was around me, or I was just toxic to myself. And the only thing that still lingers from that, I'd like to say, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's still work to do. I'm sure there is still work to do. But the main thing that I would say that still sticks around is how toxic I am to myself. When I feel like that, how shitty I treat myself, how often I'm the first thing to put to the side. On days where you are depressed, I heard this somewhere, don't quote me on this, that this is an actual fact, but I've noticed it in me, the first thing to go is brushing my teeth. That is a ritual. A first thing in the morning when you wake up, you take care of yourself, and it's almost an automatic. But the first thing to go on those weekend days when I don't want to get up out of my bed, I do not brush my teeth until the late afternoon. And most of you guys are going to look at me and be like, wow, what a disgusting individual. Yes, I feel disgusting over it. And I think it is disgusting that I could put myself to the side and my hygiene is the first thing to go, and that my hygiene can stay at such a low state, and I'm content with it being at such a low state just because I'm not willing to just take care of myself and give myself the bare minimum. It's wild. It's wild. And I think what's more disgusting, aside from the physical, is the mental, that mentally I think that I am well within my right mind to completely put my hygiene to the side. And I think that's scary. And one of the things that really scares me is that my mom was worried about me. I'm not trying to get all pity party or personal, because this is just as much about the other people that are watching this as it is about me, but once my mom said I'm going to checked me somewhere, you know? Because I've got experience with those people that we love that dealt with that, and I never want for somebody else to experience that pain, let alone re-experience that. Maybe that's a little bit too close to home, whatever. But as soon as she told me that she was worried about me, I was worried about myself. I was then 10 times more anxious, thinking, wow, now people can actually see where I'm at. Which is also ironic in itself and wrong in itself, that I decided that the point of no return, I guess, that the point of real worry is the point when other people can see it. Why does it matter what other people think? It doesn't. Why doesn't it matter what I think? Why doesn't it matter where I'm at? To the point where I can look at myself and say, hey dude, I'm proud of you, you've done enough, let's take a break, let's stop, let's relax, dude, it's cool, you know? And I know I've repeated that, whatever, I always repeat myself. I'm sure you know that at this point. If you've watched any of these, you probably haven't though, and it's not even about you, this is about me, this is really for my own mental state. So why am I putting so much pressure on this? As if your opinion is more than mine. You know, more than my opinion about myself. Self-acceptance is the biggest thing that not only I, but all of us need to figure out. You know? It's crazy. And we can accept ourselves when we're around other people. We can accept ourselves when we're in a group setting, when, you know, when it's whatever else it is. But when it's just us, do we accept ourselves? You know, honestly. I don't know if you guys know this, but I write songs. It's my passion, and so is this. And all these songs that I write, I start off feeling like this is the best thing in the world. The song of the summer, if you will, you know? Or the song of the winter, because most of them are really morbidly depressing. You know, I hope to learn from them, that's the real goal, but they sound very melancholy, if you want to put it that way, you know? And I start off thinking, what a genius you are. Dude, you're going places. Dude, you are going to be on the map in about a year's time. You're going to be the best that there ever was. And then as soon as I involve other people in that process, and as soon as I get close to that finish line where I can say, all right, I'm going to release this now, suddenly the world caves in. Suddenly the weight pops up. Suddenly I don't stop to think with myself, and I continuously avoid myself so that I have a reason to hide, you know? Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense. I don't know if that was a cohesive and flowing line, but the point of it is, I approve of myself until I think about what other people see. And the majority of the time, I don't even approve of myself when I'm the only one who sees it. So there's these two differing ideas, two differing ideologies. It's either I'm afraid of myself and afraid of what's going on inside, or I'm afraid of myself and what's going on inside because if other people saw it, then it would be even more scary, you know? But here I am out here ignoring all of that in front of a camera in a public place where multiple people have driven by or walked past me, and what? You know, I'm not hiding from myself there. That's pretty incredible, isn't it? Isn't that progress? Who knows, dude? Who knows what real progress is? Who knows what real progress is? Because I do know. Why am I saying that? Maybe because I'm in front of a camera where this can go stream to millions of people. Billions of people. Because I don't want to be too full of myself in front of you, because your opinion weighs 10 times more than what mine does. But fuck it, I'm full of myself. What I write is golden. What I say is golden. This connection with my own emotions, with this spiritual ability that I feel that I have, all of it is real. And it's real inside of me. And whatever you feel about that, however you feel about that, that weight doesn't apply to me anymore. From this point forward, that weight doesn't apply to me anymore. So I'm going to be full of myself, not in a toxic way where I treat you like you are lower than me, because nobody is lower than me. Everybody is on the same playing field, and I hope you all learn at the same pace that I do, because that's all that I want from this, is for us all to grow. But fuck it, I am full of myself. This world is mine, and this world is mine for the taking. And all this around me is not only enough, but I'm enough. I am enough. All of this around me is just a reminder of how beautiful I am, because this whole projection of this reality around me is just an exact mirror of me and my own beauty. These waves slowly crashing on the surface is just as beautiful as the same waves that go back and forth in my own brain. And whether that feels depressing, whether that feels like some massive weight, whatever that feels like, it is beautiful. And I'm happy to be here. And I always will be. Even on those days when I feel like absolute shit, from this point forward, I'm going to say, you know what? Hey, I feel like absolute shit. I'm not doing anything today. And I'm going to appreciate that and appreciate where I'm at with that. I'm done striving to impress people. I'm done striving to impress myself by just running myself into the ground. I'm done with all that. I'm here to truly, truly be myself, to truly take part in this world as myself, to truly just realize that I'm enough. And I'm enough. So this question of, at what point am I enough? That point is now. Aren't we all born enough? You're enough. I'm enough. These waves are enough. These rocks are enough. I don't know why I knocked at that so hard. It kind of hurt my hand. It is what it is. Everything is enough. And everything is beautiful in its own right. Thank you for listening. I know I'm rambling, blah, 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 about 30 minutes long. It's cool. I love you guys. But what's more important is I love myself. And I love your opinion of me, because that's constructive criticism. That's good feedback. But I love my opinion of me more. And I'm going to grow from this point forward. And I can't wait to see you guys growing with me. Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. Peace out. I'll see you next time, episode 7. Goodbye.